Monsieur Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do de. Luta mënuloo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Bësal mu fay.
What?
Bësal mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave acts in Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills, and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, Bësal mu fine. Wave, your money is yours.
Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
It's 2 minutes past 9 o'clock. I promised you Talib Ahmed Bensouda from 9 o'clock, and like all UDP invitees, he was here at least a good 20 minutes before his appointment. Speaking of good UDP invitees, Lamin Mane will never be invited to this program again because he's really taunting me this morning, even though I should have been doing the teasing and taunting. Don't you dare present the program in Liverpool regalia, he warns. You would lose more than business partners. You would lose friends. All that because of an incredibly lucky team. Talib, welcome.
Thank you.
Do you have a team in the Premier League?
No, I don't have a team in the Premier League.
You never had?
I've never had.
Never?
Never ever.
Not even those annoying Mancunian Reds?
Never.
But you love football. There used to be
I love
to be a Mayor's Trophy for football.
Yeah, I love football. I usually watch La Liga a lot.
Who watches La Liga?
So I'm a Lionel Messi fan. So when he was playing in Barcelona, the thing that attracted me to the La Liga was the Clásicos during the 2012 era, 2011, 2010.
Well, we just had one,
exactly.
a few days ago.
Exactly. When Messi moved out of Barcelona, I didn't watch their matches much. I started watching the MLS. But now
because Messi had moved to the MLS.
Exactly. So I don't follow teams. I follow footballers. I follow players.
Oh, yeah, there are people like that.
Yes. So for me, I think if I'm not from the place or I don't have any connection to the place in terms of whether I've lived there or I have friends there, it becomes very difficult to support the team. But I do support players. So now I continue to support Barcelona, given the rise of Lamine Yamal.
Yeah, talking about knowing the place and whatever. So you're not supporting Liverpool. Probably even maybe Dad spoke about Liverpool. There was a time when when people stowed away, as they said. Then they all turned up in Liverpool mostly.
Well, my uncle, I have an uncle, Habib Drame. He's a big Manchester United
I know
fan.
Habib.
Yes.
I know Habib.
Former
Secretary General.
Exactly.
In fact, we are planning on having him on the program.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, really? Yes. So he used to watch Manchester a lot.
He was watching the wrong team.
Yeah, well, he's a big Manchester fan. When they lose, you know it right away because he doesn't eat lunch.
Look at Lamine Mane attacking me, your fellow, UDPN. Maybe you should warn him after this, because what do we say about the Gambia? Trust the courts, and I will take him to the court. Talib, welcome.
Thank you.
We have a lot to talk about,
Sure.
I hope that listeners also have questions for you. Starting with your development agenda.
Sure.
For people like me,
Yeah.
residents of Kanifing Municipality.
Yeah.
What have you been able to achieve? What have you just initiated? And where do you find frustration?
Yeah, so it's a loaded question. We've achieved a lot. I think where we found KMC and where it is now is a huge difference. Number one, I always say, is the institutional reform. KMC was well-known political place, political bureau for the then APRC. It was used to propel their politics. Most of the appointees, if not all of them, were part of the party structure of the then APRC. So naturally, governance was not big in KMC. There was no checks and balances, no financial controls. The culture then was not about service delivery. So by far, I think the biggest achievement we have had is institutional reform to restructure, getting the right people in the right places, also change the culture to a service-driven institution. It's not perfect. We have a long way to go. Like you said, there's frustrations along the way. But I think there's a market improvement that is visible to the residents of the municipality. That's why even being an opposition mayor and council, we were able to come back with a large margin. Secondly, our biggest achievement after that is improved waste management. Coming into KMC, there was no waste collection capacity. The council had 2 tractors, second-hand, 1 second-hand truck as well, which was bought as a second-hand truck and almost dead. And now we boast about 32 waste management vehicles, which were all bought brand new. We are right now actually on the cusp of doing a total overhaul of all the vehicles. They've been running now, some for 5 years, some for 1.5 years. So it's time to basically rehabilitate them to maintenance, general maintenance. So we just actually floated a tender, and the vendor won that tender. And basically we're on the cusp of renewing those vehicles so they expand their lifespan. Aside from that, we of course have increased communal dumps. We have structured them by introducing skip bins, and now we are building waste enclosures. So we have now 30 properly structured communal dumps to get rid of illegal street dumping. We have also increased street cleaning. As you can see now, even along the West Coast Highway on Kotu Road, you have street cleaners there, Palmarima Junction. We have on the Kairaba Avenue, Birkama Highway, Bundung Highway now, after there was many complaints. So we are spreading our street cleaning capacity to combat littering. So aside from that, of course, still in waste management, still the biggest problem, we have the Bakote dump site. Now we are going 4 years without major fire. Before, for the past 30 years, it would be on fire every year. Huge fires that would go on for weeks, if not months. It has caused deaths. It has caused many ailments. Also, the dump site was very difficult to live by. The smell, in the rainy season, it would flood. We still have that problem. And of course, it was not secure. We have brought in infrastructure, fenced it off, built concrete roads inside, improved the water infrastructure, firefighting infrastructure. We have 2 recycling sheds. We've just signed a contract to bring a tire recycling company on board. We just also won a UNDP grant to bring recycling machines for plastics. Big improvements at the Bakote dump site, and it's evident in the fact that we are receiving almost no complaints from residents who live around that area. As many have heard, we've also won a grant of 48 million euro from the European Investment Bank, and that would be to close Bakote dump site by 2027. It will also create biodigesters, which is sort of a transfer station recycling facility at Abuko. It would also include a Banjul City Council, which would have a biodigester there. And then in Birkama, there would be an engineered landfill. So KMC applied for the grant. We won it. However, we have to work with stakeholders, and given the amount of money and the fact that some of it is a sovereign loan, we've had to hand the project to the central government, which we have no problems with as far as the benefit comes to everybody, which is our major interest. So major strides in waste management. In terms of market development, we have constructed 4 markets during our time. We are on the cusp of adding 2 major markets. The 4 markets we created were small markets or medium-sized markets. But now we are on the cusp of developing 2 major markets to the size of the Serakunda and Latrakunda market.
Where would these be?
One is called Imbari Padembo. It is in Serakunda.
Whereabouts in Serakunda?
It's in Serakunda. It's almost behind the main market. There's a big plot there. Which we've just actually, there were stalls which just demolished.
Would that be the late Mahoney's, the remnant of the late Mahoney's compound?
No.
Or would it be the Janes on the other side?
No, so it's not very far back.
Okay.
It's just behind the main market building. It's hard to describe.
Okay.
But
well, I know that area very well.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it might be the compound of the late Yafatu Paul.
So it's not a compound. It is part of the original market structure. It was used for meat sellers, but the meat sellers transferred.
Okay.
And then there was a kiosk created in and around the area. So we have demolished the area and we are preparing to construct 96 shops there. The other market would be the Tipa Garas. We are planning to expand it on the frontage to create a mall type market. We are trying to create a sample of a modern market.
Okay.
We've come up with these ideas to combat street vending because we know it's increasingly is problematic. But there's only so far you can blame street vendors. People have to feed their families.
Yeah.
So what we need to focus on is alternatives and solutions. So we
Occasionally you clear them and they come back the very next minute.
Yeah, so we don't clear highways. The government does that.
Oh, that's the government.
Yes, we try to free up the veins inside the markets because it's an emergency issue. It's a safety issue. It is also an issue of making the markets vibrant. I mean, if the major veins are clogged, then the market has a heart attack.
Yeah, the blood doesn't flow.
Yeah, so basically what happens is vendors, customers are unable to get inside the market. So those who are legitimate vendors in terms of they're paying rent, they're paying their taxes, they're doing everything they're supposed to do, don't get customers.
All right. So institutional reform, waste management,
market development,
development.
Education. We've built the first municipal library ever. We've just opened a local language section there. The library is highly utilized. It has internet cafe. Every facility you would need as a person studying or learning is in our library. We also just almost finished building an assembly hall at Charles Jau, which is our school. When I came in, all the assembly was done outdoors. And in the rainy season, they couldn't do assemblies. So it was
You are bringing them to the level of St. Augustine's High School.
Well, yeah, we are very proud of the school and we think it's one of the best
I'm trying to get back at Lamin Mane.
So we also got, of course, a grant through the Holland Foundation. Where
MRC Holland.
MRC Holland Foundation, where we are building the commerce wing. The commerce wing is completed. It's actually being utilized, but we've decided to launch it same day as we are launching the assembly hall. So we've had a good development in education. Over the course of the years also, we've given tons of scholarship. We don't usually advertise it. We have an education committee. They usually look for underprivileged children. So every year we budget about $1 million or $2 million for the past 8 years, and we give scholarships to students who are
What's your reason for not publicizing it? Because I mean, this was one of your promises.
Yes,
that,
yes.
You will offer educational opportunities for youth of the municipality.
Absolutely.
So if you are, giving those opportunities and not announcing them, people might sit there and say, "Well, he said he would do this, and he's not doing that."
Well, we're doing it. I think it's just a lapse, but I think the goodwill is what is important. First, the politics, of course, is important, so people would be aware. But we've been doing it for the past 7 years. It's actually statutory in our budget. The Education Committee develops a $1 million to $2 million scholarship fund. Same as the youth budget. We help artists. We help poets. We help people who are launching books. So we've spent a lot of money in those aspects. Also, as far as youth are concerned, we've created parks, about 7 of them. One is left to complete it 8. But now we are actually on the cusp of trying to bring back the zones under the supervision of the municipality. We have 5 footballing zones. They are governed by sport committees elected by the football teams. But we see there's a lot of issues in terms of poor infrastructure. Trust issues in terms of how they are managed. There doesn't seem to be any reporting line as it was intended. So we are trying to bring them back under the purview and supervision of the municipality. And starting next year, we will subvent them. So we've been having major development in sports. I'm also on the brink of initiating what we call the Mayor's Legacy Program, which will support 70 youth businesses with seed funding to basically build their businesses and employ more youths, part of an ecosystem of sports, arts, and culture. So we'll be launching festivals in adjacent to the youth fund. And of course, lastly, recently, we've done a lot, but these are the major ones. Recently, we have just launched our road network project, which is by far the most ambitious municipal project in the history of this country, where we are planning to build about 15 kilometers of feeder roads, 6 kilometers of drains, and this is 100% funded by taxpayers' money. Of course, you've heard the push and pull with the government. You've heard the noise.
We need you to clarify,
absolutely,
that issue.
So we're pushing ahead.
15 kilometers in total, but 10 roads, right?
I believe it's 11 or 12.
11 or 12.
Yeah, so these are roads that connect our communities. These are feeder roads. We identified them in consultation with the NRA. With our projects, what we want is impact. We want equity. We want fairness. We want everybody to sort of feel municipal projects, because taxpayers' money comes from all parts of the municipality. So we choose roads that connect communities. So a road should not start in a ward and end in a ward. It should connect to another ward, and it should help bypass congestions, right? So OIC is building some roads in the municipality. NRA is building some roads. So our roads are supposed to complement the network within KMC.
Okay, they are meant to do that, but then work should have started some time ago. We still are yet to hear that ground has been broken, for the
Well, ground has been broken. The drains are currently being built at Bakau.
Okay.
Because the 6 kilometers of drains is exclusively for the Bakau community. Because there are colonial drains there, and a lot of people are connecting sewage into those drains. If you visit the area, you know what I mean. It's a health issue. Yeah. There's been cholera outbreaks. So we've prioritized the rebuilding and reconstruction of the Bakau drains. So I think 2 weeks ago, ground has been broken. They have started along the K Point area and heading inside Bakau.
Okay.
That is the first part of the project.
Probably no problems with drains, but when it comes to the roads, we hear all sorts of
well,
problems.
it's not figured out because there's
So what's the problem with NRA, or is it central government?
It's not NRA, it's politics. So when we were thinking and at the concept stage, when we were conceiving this project, we invited stakeholders because we already knew we are opposition council. There's a likelihood of pushback from government. So we created a committee. The committee involved the local government select committee at Parliament. It involved the National Roads Authority. It involved the Ministry of Works. It involved NAWEC. It involved every stakeholder. We don't have a local road authority yet, and this is one of our goals. It's mentioned in the Act, but no council has ever created it. So we have to rely on the National Road Authority. So in the initial concept stage.
So if you had a local road authority, you wouldn't have gone to NRA?
We could consult them, but we don't need to go to them.
Okay.
Right. So basically we invited them. The design of the roads was done by the NRA. We don't have the ability to design roads in-house. If you see the initial concept document that shows the map of KMC and the planned roads, that document would have NRA's logo and KMC's logo on it. So there was no problems at this stage. From the design stage, the council approved the roads. We moved to the procurement stage. The procurement stage was the same team involved. Actually, the current contractor was recommended by NRA.
Oh, wow.
So the politicians were not involved at this point. It was just technicians trying to build the municipality. And then when it moved to the procurement stage, a contractor was identified. It moved to the council approved. It moved to the Gambian Public Procurement Authority. They approved it. So it followed all the procurement processes, and it reached now implementation stage. The problem started when we launched it. The foundation stone laying at Bakau Newtown. Once we launched it, and then it became news, and it became, of course, all the fanfare, etc., that's when we started getting signals that something is brewing. So what started happening is an MOU that was already signed with NRA, they basically called our director of planning and said, there's something wrong with the MOU. And she said, what is wrong with the MOU? They said, well, the director did not authorize the signing of the MOU. The deputy director signed it, and he didn't have authority to sign it. That was funny. All right? So...
Director meaning the Director General of the NRA.
NRA claimed that he did not sign it. It
now,
was his deputy.
Who signed? Because we now we know that there's a new Director General taking over from Senghor.
This was not during Senghor's time.
Okay.
All of this happened during Sanyang's time.
This current one.
Yes, this current one. Okay. So the deputy director is Suleiman. Suleiman Samure or Sumare. He signed on behalf of the NRA. Yeah. So it's just like mayor saying, oh, I am not involved. Deputy mayor signed, therefore this is not valid, which is, of course, nonsense. So basically, from there, they called our team and said, look, we have to review the MOU. We actually don't approve the road designs. And they said, why don't you approve it? They said, well, first of all, the roads need to be widened because people need to be able to park on the roads. Secondly, there should be an allocation of budget for the movement of services, which is the NAWEX, the GAMTEL, etc., relocation of services. Thirdly, the roads need lights. Fourthly, if I remember correctly, the roads should involve the demolition of homes. So there should be an element of compensation. So basically, this is an administrative tactic to block the project. They know that with all these things, the project will run into the billions.
Excellent jam, Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do de. Luta munulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Busel mu fine.
What?
Busel mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Accina Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, Busel mu fine. Wave, your money is yours.
Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
But in the meantime, you were being criticized for it. I interviewed Dr. Demba Sabali,
Right.
and I mentioned this road project,
Right.
and he said we will never see a single road.
Yeah, so just imagine. I think you should be ashamed for saying that. A Gambian of any capacity, of any position, should never be happy to even come and say that.
Is there anything you can do? Is there anything the country
There's
can
no
do
way
to
they can
force?
So there's no way they
force
can
the commencement of
we
work
have checked,
on the road.
We have checked with our legal team. There's no way they're going to stop these roads.
So we can expect work to begin
well,
on these
we've
roads?
started.
Okay.
So unless they want to come and shoot the tires of the bulldozers, we are going to continue working.
But in that case, you take them to court.
So we are not... Well, yeah, so we will take whatever remedies legally we can. But one thing is for sure, we will not stop working. We are not doing anything illegal or wrong. We followed all the procurement processes. We've consulted all the departments and agencies. We've signed an MOU. We've had the endorsement. We are going to continue our works. We have a contract, and we are legally liable to deliver on that contract. We have a promise, a contract with the people. We are liable to ensure that we deliver on that promise. So all we are saying is we think every government official should be proud and clapping for KMC. Mm-hmm. We did not beg for money. We did not ask government for money. We did not go look for grant funding. We did not take loans. We are building with taxpayers' funds. So basically, we are going to forge ahead. We now see very clearly there's nothing that should be able to stop us, and we are very committed to see this through. And at the end of the day, if they feel like they're going to use force, just like they've used in KMC before, we will use the tools and routes available to us. Mm-hmm. But the road project is going ahead. We believe it is extremely important in a country where 90% of roads are not developed, which is directly linked to economic growth. It is directly linked to mobility and welfare of the people. So we have no reason to stop. Mm-hmm. So basically, that's the latest project we are pushing ahead on. Yeah.
Good luck. I have a vested interest in, the road network in
Absolutely.
the Kanifing
We all do.
Municipal.
We all do,
because
yeah.
that's where I live.
Absolutely.
Just going back to institutional reform, at some point it was very nasty and very public when you were embroiled in a push and pull with the CEO you inherited.
Right.
Did you inherit her, or was she?
Right. So
was she deployed to the KMC after you became mayor?
Right. So she was deployed to the KMC after I became mayor. When I was arriving in the KMC, we did not have a CEO. The CEO who was then there was put under suspension by the interim management committee on suspected fraudulent activities.
Was this under Bakari Jammeh?
Under Bakari Jammeh.
Okay.
So when I arrived, I received an interim management report from Bakari Jammeh that clearly stated the allegations against that CEO. We heard then the permanent secretary was trying to bring that CEO back.
Who was Buba Sanyang at the time?
No, who was Pa Khalifa Sanyang.
Okay.
Right. So
He was permanent secretary?
No, Buba Sanyang was permanent secretary. Pa Khalifa Sanyang was the CEO.
Okay.
So the interim management appointed by the president had an special audit done on the council. They came up with an investigation. They suspended the then CEO on allegations of fraud and malpractice and abuse of power, etc. And then basically when we came into office, there was no CEO. There was an acting CEO. And then, of course, after the interim left, we got signals from the ministry that they were trying to bring back Pa Khalifa. Buba Sanyang was trying to bring back Pa Khalifa. We immediately sat as a council and said, look, I didn't know Pa Khalifa. I've never worked with him. But the interim management report, the findings were damning. I mean, if they've gone as far as recommending his suspension and recommendation for dismissal, then I don't think we want that CEO to return to council. So we sat, we deliberated, we passed a council resolution stating that we will not accept that particular CEO to return to the council. I think that was a move that the ministry then and Buba was very unhappy about. Then, of course, we had an acting CEO, Salam Anjay, who acted for about 4, 5, 6 months and resigned on her own accord. She left the council, and then we had another acting CEO.
Did she say why she was resigning?
She did not state. She stated
probably unhappy with your leadership, perhaps?
Well, I don't know. That's up to her. She did not communicate that. What she communicated was she was a personal reason.
And you never had any personal push and pull over any issue?
No, I've never had any issue personally with her. She may have been disgruntled, but I don't know. The second acting CEO, Jaja Cham, he worked with us for...
It's like a long line of, acting.
Yeah, acting. So these are one of the issues we face as councils. These are issues that impede on our ability to deliver services. We cannot hire our own people. We cannot fire our own people. And therefore, imagine West Coast Radio. You couldn't hire your team or fire your team. It would be dysfunctional.
But are you allowed any participation in the decision-making process? Before A. Peter Gomez is sent over to KMC as Talib CEO?
So the rule is when you hire a CEO, the local government act says it should be in consultation with the mayor. However, it doesn't say the approval of the mayor. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah,
so
in consultation is good enough.
Yeah, so it says, it's not good enough.
Well,
right.
you could say...
So I am the mayor.
That is to seek your opinion. We are about to bring you Tombong Seidi, and you say, well, my objection about Tombong is this or that.
Imagine the president had to seek the opinion of people. Sorry, imagine somebody sought the opinion of the president before they appointed his cabinet, whether he liked the cabinet minister or not, or whether he wanted them or not. That basically makes the president a lame duck. That removes his executive power. Okay. Elections are held by universal adult suffrage to empower government, to empower people to govern. Right? So if I have to get votes of the people, their consent to govern, I must be allowed to govern. And being allowed to govern is bringing a team of competent people that I will manage, monitor, promote when they do good, discipline when they do bad, and can fire when they do wrong. So basically the way it is set up for us to fail. right?
Wow.
It is the way local government is set up in the Gambia. And, this is since the Jammeh era. During the Jawara era, it was not like that. Mayors used to hire their CEOs. But because of Lai Conte especially, his time as a rising star, his time as basically a mayor who took the reins and was very ambitious for the municipality, he became a threat to the incumbent politically. So they started amending the act and removing the executive powers of mayor, weakening councils, and giving government more control. So we have inherited this poor system, and this is why we have all the problems we have today. So we then...
Do you think National Assembly members are aware of this?
They are very aware.
And,
issue? We also blame them. We don't take blame away from them. We think they are also one of the responsible parties. We've written multiple letters to the National Assembly to make local government reform, to look at the laws again, to make local governments functional and not dysfunctional, to make sure power lies where it should be. And
what can Galga as an organization do? Because, because if Galga works and is effective as it's meant to be,
so Galga to be frank, the Galga on the landing Bisane, and I'm not saying this because of partisan politics, used to engage us, used to engage government a lot, used to fight for local government, basically to make sure we are autonomous, to fight for our rights. Of course, there's a lot more they could have done, but they were more effective than this particular Galga. I guess this Galga, the majority is with the ruling party. They don't want to offend them. They're probably under their control. So they don't look at local government as an entity that needs to be enhanced. They look at themselves as party officials who need to comply with the ruling party. So coming back to the specific topic, we had Jaja Cham, who was acting for 1.5 years to 2 years. Then the ministry didn't like that we were implementing so many projects. We were even being compared to government, that we were delivering more on services. And they tried to muzzle Jaja a couple of times. The ministers would invite him to his office, threaten to move him.
Threaten?
Threaten to move him from the council. There was one scenario where I was sitting with Jaja and a minister who told him, well, Jaja basically talked back. He was not a guy who would be bulldozed or run over.
Good for him.
And the minister basically told him, if you continue like this, I'll make sure you're moved. And I was sitting right there. So basically,
where's Jaja now?
They moved him to Janjambure.
Well.
So, which is also illegal. So basically...
Illegal?
Yeah, because you cannot move an officer without their consent.
Oh wow!
So it's in the local government.
So he could have refused the move.
Well, basically, Kajali Jane refused to move because they also moved him, who was the then DCEO, and they sent him a termination letter when he refused. Oh, wow. So they instill fear in some of the officers, but it's an unconstitutional act. If I apply to work for KMC, that's where I apply to work for. If you want to move me to Basse, where I have no home, where I have no family, I did not apply to be in Basse. The local government act says you need the consent of that particular officer.
Yeah, but government could also argue that if permanent secretaries can be moved around without any...
Well, this is not central government. This is local government, which have a high degree of autonomy. The Supreme Court has clearly stated it. And this is a local government service. It's not a civil service. It's different. So you need to have the consent of that particular officer. It's in the Local Government Act. Okay. So when Jaja came, they decided to do an interview, advertise for the position of CEO. That's when, and the Director of Finance, because both were acting. Because what I forgot to tell you is the interim had suspended both the then Director of Finance, Joanna Hall, and the CEO, Pa Khalifa Sanyang.
Oh, wow.
Right. So we were having an acting CEO and Director of Finance from 2019 towards 2020, 2021. So then they started advertising for both these positions. When they consulted me, I recommended Jaja and I recommended Sirif, who was both acting. And they did not take my recommendation. I was actually having a push and pull at that interview because the permanent secretary attended the interview, which is abnormal. Abnormal,
but not illegal.
It is borderline illegal. So there's a local government service commission, which the law states should be independent and not under the influence or control of any authority. So my first objection for the local government service commission and how it was constituted is that, one, they should not be housed in the ministry, because that means they would be influenced one way or the other. Number two, our letters from the council should not go through the ministry to end up at the local government service commission. They should not monitor our letters. They should not act as a messenger for our letters. They should not basically have any opportunity to decide what letters they can send there or not. Secondly, the director of governance of the ministry should not serve as a secretary at the local government service commission, because that makes them basically not independent, right? So if the director of governance was serving as a secretary, that makes them not independent.
Yes.
Secondly, when in the
because
hiring,
you can go and report on all decisions of the organization.
secondly, when they are hiring or firing or coming to decisions, no member of the ministry or the council, except in the case of the hiring of the CEO, should not be present. In the case of the hiring of the CEO, the law says the mayor must be consulted. All right? But outside of that, no officer from any party should be part of the decision-making process. And he was there.
Oh, wow.
And he was making his opinions, and he was scoring.
Effectively participating.
Effectively participating. And there was a fracas because I objected to his presence being there, but the chairman then of the commission said no, that was okay, etc. And then, of course, everybody I wanted, they automatically disqualified. And that's how they handpicked, or I guess graded Seinabu to come on board, who became the CEO we had an issue with, and Dr. Aliu Keita to come on board. So basically, these were people, I guess, they believe were loyalists to them. So you see the problem.
But at the beginning, she seemed to play along because she was.
They all play along.
She was saying nice things about you,
Well, they have
and
to,
we thought they were working hand in glove. Huh?
You know, so I think we had a cordial relationship. To a point, the ministry started making her an enemy.
Oh,
there's been instances she has complained to me.
She was now caught between two hard rocks.
Yes. So she was not playing ball as they wanted her to, right? So she basically had issues with the minister. And she told me never to send her to the ministry again at some point. Now, when we
should say the minister at the time was the current fisheries minister,
yes.
Musa Drame.
Yeah, so what basically happened, she wanted to enter into land transactions on behalf of the staff, which was okay as far as it did not concern council finance or taxpayers' money or expose the council to any liabilities. So against my advice, when she went to the bank, seeing that she was unable to pull out those transactions without a guarantee from the council or council being involved, knowing that I objected to that because my role is to protect taxpayers' money, she bypassed the authority of the council. This is the basis of the problem. We illegally went and acquired. So imagine you work for a company and the CEO of the company bypasses board authority and exposes the company to a liability that may end that company, a fatal liability, right? So basically, that was our push and pull. The ministry, of course, exploited that situation and saw that there was a wedge to now have an agent who they could turn against the council. So basically, we said, well, the Local Government Act says every CEO is under direction and control of the council. It's stated clearly in the act. So if we tell you, stay home, and direct you to stay home as a body, you should stay home.
Well, of course, it became a court matter. And
yes,
of course,
for many years.
Recently, the court ruled
and what that has done effectively, the 2 or 3 years of fighting has caused KMC taxpayers more harm than they could ever imagine.
How?
In those 2 years, imagine if you were a staff working at KMC. Number one, you're confused about who's your authority. Are you answerable to the council or are you answerable to the ministry? Secondly, if you were a staff who wanted to perform, you would slow down because you wouldn't be a target of the ministry.
Did you experience a slowdown
We
of staff?
experienced a slowdown in all productivity at every level of the council.
Oh, wow.
We experienced confusion. every staff that had a grievance used that opportunity to see how they could partner with the ministry and fight council and cripple council. You know, every staff who wanted us to perform.
It's amazing you could still afford a smile.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
well,
all that
I take it in my stride. You know, I always say it's a public office. It's not my home. So there's nothing personal about it. It's a fight. It's a game, I guess, to them. But it's a dangerous game. They're playing with people's lives. They're playing with taxpayers' money. They're playing with the progress of our country. You know, so what has essentially happened is they have caused a lot of psychological harm to the council. Productivity has gone down. Basically, enemies of the council or disgruntled staff used that window as an opportunity to fight the council. There was a confusion about who is an authority. Imagine you were in your house, and then as a man of the house, your children don't know if you're in charge of them or not. Imagine how dysfunctional that household would be. So basically, you can't fire, you can't hire, you can't discipline. There's chaos.
So now that the courts have come out clearly on the side of the KMC, how has that changed things?
Well, that has started to change things, right? So basically, the court, which has come 2-3 years after, right? Now everybody is clear on who's the authority. And I think this should have been very simple. We are elected by universal adult suffrage to manage the affairs of the municipality. There should not have been any confusion about who's in charge of the human resources and who's in charge of the financial resources of the council. And remember, there's checks and balances in our government. One, the FPAC committee, Finance Public Accounts Committee, oversees all council's accounts. The National Audit Office audits us annually. The ministry should create regulations and have oversight function and be sending quarterly inspectors to ensure the council is complying with the regulations and the laws of the Gambia. So therefore, us having control over our financial and human resources should not be a problem because there's instruments to ensure that the council is not breaking the law. But now, for the past 3 years, what has basically happened is with this fracas, with the PIU, with the fights, with the lack of CEO, there's been a ministerial commission of inquiry attempted, which we quashed in the High Court. There has been an interim committee they were hoping on to come back and basically destabilize us politically. We fought that in the Supreme Court and won. There has been an attempt, of course, with bringing the CEO there where we had an injunction. When that injunction expired, they brought her again during the electoral process, and then we had a fight of battle of wills. So we used instruments, blocked her signature from all our accounts, made sure administratively she was dormant or redundant, irrelevant, and eventually they pulled her out. But imagine in these 3 years as a staff. And you know what the miracle is?
What is the
miracle? We were able to maintain KMC as a functioning body. We were never late on salaries during these 3 years. We were able to maintain the delivery of services. It took an immense amount of will from my side and psychological strength to keep that council together with all these assaults. So I with God's help, with also the support of the people, because I think, to be fair, most of the residents of KMC were on our side. And evidently, it showed in the election results.
Exactly.
Excellent jam, Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do dede. Luta mo nulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello? Ano lay waxal?
Busel mu fine.
What?
Busel mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Accina Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills, and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, Busel mu fine. Wave, your money is yours.
Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
We're talking to Talib Ahmed Bensouda, mayor of Kanifing Municipality. A while back, you spoke about being elected to manage the resources, including financial, I suppose, of KMC, the Kanifing Municipality. We are hearing revelations at the Local Government Commission of Inquiry. How much would you say, you have properly managed the finances of the committee, of the council, sorry. You talk about the Mbalik trucks, costing KM taxpayers way more than it should have, or they should have.
Well, that's false information. The Commission of Inquiry, if you go back to history, was set up by Minister of Lands, Musa Drame. It was a ministerial commission of inquiry. The design was to tarnish my image and potentially unceremoniously remove me from office, because a ministerial commission of inquiry at a certain level has those powers if there's damning findings against you. Now, when that was quashed and made redundant at the High Court.
You went to court immediately?
We went to court immediately, and that was quashed. Then they were holding out on the interim management as a way to dismantle me politically and to make me not win. When that failed, then they tried the attempt to usurp our powers using a CEO. When that failed, now they went to a presidential commission of inquiry. Now, the presidential commission of inquiry does not have the specific tools the ministerial commission of inquiry has, but it has an agenda to tarnish the image of myself. That is the main...
How do you mean? So it can only inflict reputational damage?
It can inflict reputational damage.
It cannot take you out of office?
It cannot take me out of office. Right? So it can inflict reputational damage. There would be an attempt to block my future political career, because a lot of them perceive me as a future political threat for higher office. So...
Don't you consider yourself one?
I consider myself one.
Okay. Yes, so let's move on.
To be honest. I'm a politician. Yeah. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
And you've said...
I'm putting my sweat, blood, and tears.
This second term is your last.
It's my final
as
term.
Mayor, but you're not bowing out of politics.
I'm not bowing out of...
We'll get to that later on.
Let's just get... So basically, this was the agenda. Now, coming back to the specific revelations, like you said, at the Commission of Inquiry. Number one, when we brought the Mbale trucks, there was an investigation that many people didn't know about. Special investigation conducted by the State House.
Really?
Yes.
Why did you not make this public?
Well, I've spoke about it in one or two interviews. This Mbale trucks, from the time it landed in this country, it became maybe a psychological issue for the president and his cronies. One, it's never been seen before. Because remember, this is even before the GTSC buses came, etc. A fleet of 20 plus trucks, massive trucks, brand new, driving into town. Every truck is marked with the logo of the council and the specific ward it should serve. And the painful thing, I guess, for them is they had nothing to do with it. Government did not put one penny.
They felt sidelined.
They felt sidelined and maybe in their minds belittled. But that's their fault. That's not my fault. I came into office with no waste management capacity. I went to a rally where when we were together with the president, Meet the People tour, I begged him. I said, Mr. President, we are facing a lot of problems with waste management. We have now almost 100 illegal dump sites around the municipality. Our markets are full of waste every day. The households are full of waste every day. KMC is an unforgiving municipality. It's highly congested. Densely, the most densely populated region. Waste accumulates very quickly. And if you add that in addition to the habits of the people in the municipality, they don't see littering as an issue or throwing waste in unfinished houses or into the riverine area. So I said, can you help us with the Jamme tractors? And then we could use that to sort of remedy the problem temporarily until we find a permanent solution. He basically laughed at me at the rally and said, Mayor, when you go for politics, you make big promises. And when you get into office, you see it will be difficult to maintain those promises. Oh. That was his response.
Really?
Yes. From there, I went to...
Was he speaking out of experience? That he made perhaps big promises that he wasn't being able to deliver on?
I think from the beginning of my political career, President Barrow was never comfortable with me. I think maybe the potency of my first election, the crowds at the nomination,
He must be a smart guy then to have to have spotted that in you that early on.
We
Maybe the president is smarter than some of us would admit.
I guess politicians recognize each other and their potential of each other. So he was never comfortable, I don't think. And in that specific meeting, one observation I had, all the T-shirts in his Meet the People meeting were my T-shirts because my campaign had just concluded.
So people were turning up to a Barrow meeting
because he was part of the
wearing
UDP.
Talib Ahmed Bensouda's T-shirt, not Barrow.
So his response was not friendly. I didn't like it. It wasn't positive. I'm still young. Well, I was a very young politician, 29. I looked up to him. I wanted to work with the president. It was a privilege. But his response was a signal to me of future trouble. I then went to the Minister of Lands office, Musa Drame at the time. I told him the same issue. He said, look, Talib, you're my nephew. We're going to try to help you.
Oh, so Musa is your uncle.
Me and Musa, we used to have a good relationship, He took up...
Gambia is a small country.
It's too small, Even his first wife was working at my dad's office, Auntie Teres.
Wow.
That's where they met when my dad was a permanent secretary at the president's office. So it's a small country. When he was also working at the parliament, he knew my father, he knew my mother, and he could be my dad. He's that old, So I've always shown him respect.
Could be your dad. Musa is
my dad.
Musa is older than me.
Yeah, so I'm a young guy.
Well, let me reveal some information.
Yeah.
You and my last daughter were both born in 1986.
Oh, look at that.
Teres was born in 1986.
So I will never call you Peter again.
Exactly.
Uncle Peter.
No, you've always called me Uncle Peter.
Oh, that's it. So basically, from there, I asked him, he said, look, we're working with some Turkish. We're going to see how we can get trucks for you guys. It never came. I went to his office again. I said, look, I am facing a lot of pressure. How can we work out some loans or anything that could help us get trucks? Again, just wait, just be patient. We couldn't wait anymore. So we floated a PPP. Remember, what we are doing is not in private. We are publicly tendering on newspapers. We are not hiding. We are going to GPPA, a government agency, who gave us approval, who will look at all the documents. We have contracts committee meetings, right, where the mayor doesn't sit, multiple stakeholders sit, and we are the only council who invites a subject matter specialist from the community of KMC. We had two, Mr. Kebe, who was a consultant, well-known, working with Gamtel. We had Mr. Barry, who was also a well-known consultant at the time. They came together in our contracts committee. They looked at offers. We had two offers. After we advertised everywhere, TK Motors said they were interested, but cash, we basically, when they deliver, we pay. We got only one offer for pre-financing, which was from Espas. And these trucks at the time, the offer we got with finance inclusive, 3 years financing inclusive, the interest inbuilt is 5.2 million per truck. 5.2 million a truck. So what basically happened when the trucks landed, then the noise started. How do we investigate? They was just trying to brew problems to basically make the project, give it a bad image. So what had initially happened is they started a special investigation from State House. How we knew, GPPA called us and said, guys, do you have a copy of these procurement documents? We're like, what do you mean? You guys have all the copies. They said, well, State House collected these documents. We're like, why?
Oh, wow.
They said they had a special investigation and the documents got lost. So can you send us copies for our files? So they did their special investigation. Nothing came out of it because every process was followed. Every procurement rule was followed to the letter. And at the end of the day, the approval comes from a government body, the Gambian Public Procurement Authority. If they had come to us and said, no, these trucks are overpriced, these trucks are not good, they're poor quality, then they could have stopped the project. But there was nothing wrong with the project. So basically what had happened then, when the fight started with the then CEO, they went online because it was a propaganda battle. They went online and researched what does a 4-ton compactor truck cost.
Okay.
So they will get an Alibaba or AliExpress price and those prices came up with $50,000 to $60,000. Whereas we bought the trucks locally for about $100,000. So you go on AliExpress, which will show you a truck price in China, FOB. You don't add the freight. Yeah. You don't add the duty, which we paid, because they refused to give us duty free. That was a tactic to make the trucks not enter the country. We paid $13.1 million. Then you don't add the profit of the person who's selling those trucks. Any vendor who's buying a truck, $60,000 from China, ships it here, is not going to sell it for free. No. They have to inbuild their profit. Then you don't add the 3-year interest. Remember, these are not trucks that are sold on the spot and we are paying on the spot. We are paying with revenue over a 3-year period. But they just went online, got a price tag, $60,000 from China, subtracted it from what we sold it, and say, oh, if you calculate this amount, KMC has overpaid by 30 million. It's just a propaganda game. I always said in all my interviews, if we believe there's fraud, take us to the fraud squad. Prosecute us through the courts. A government should not be going into propaganda warfare with an opposition. A government, if they detect fraud or have a high suspicion of fraud, they are tools that the government can use to ensure there's no fraud.
Do you think they are winning in this quote-unquote propaganda warfare?
Yeah.
Since these revelations were made at the Local Government Commission of Inquiry, have you been, approached by friends to say, Talib, how would you allow such a thing to happen?
So I think majority of the people watching this already know what's going on, even people that are not on our side. So I think when it comes to politics, you have supporters, you have naysayers. Supporters support, it's passion. Naysayers will always go against.
And how many of those naysayers have,
I mean, they were on the media especially. Remember, some of these accusations were happening during my re-election. This is when these accusations were happening, during the campaign period. And they were trying to sell it to the voters. It's all politics. But the voters didn't buy. I won by double my votes in 2018. I captured more council seats than in 2018. I had reduced the opposition in my council from 7 to 4. Now we are 15 instead of 12.
So the commission for you was counterproductive?
It's counterproductive for them. Because at the end of the day, people don't like injustice. They don't like people being bullied. I always said in my campaign, if you think I have done something, take me to the police. Why are you beating around the bush and telling stories on media as a government? So basically, that's the propaganda tool they were using about the Mbali trucks. But let me tell you something. The model we used is the model now all of government is using. They use the same model to procure their GTSC buses, which, by the way, from the same vendor, cost 9 and 10 million. I know, because we were trying to see if we could buy buses from them. And they brought us and said, well, these are buses we sold to GTSC. One bus was 7 million, the other was 9, the other was about 12 million.
And is that too expensive for you?
Well, if you're crying about a Mbali truck that costs 5.2 million, which is even bigger than the bus, then a bus should certainly not cost 10 and 12 million.
So you wouldn't spend 7 million on a bus?
I wouldn't, because we were checking at the same buses from Tata for 2.4 million, same seater, Tata Motors. And we are buying direct, 2.4
So we
million.
should set up a commission of inquiry for government over those buses.
Yes. They have gone and procured OIC vehicles from the same vendor. These are SUVs. It's not a compactor truck which serves the population and is super massive. It's not a bus which serves the population and is super massive. These are SUVs to sit 6 to 7 people for their personal use. They went and spent 12 million per vehicle each.
$12 million?
Yes, but let me tell you, if you go online...
On a sports utility vehicle?
And you go for a personal use of a minister. So you're living off the people. Because a lot of them could not buy this vehicle without government. A lot of them would not drive in these luxury vehicles if they were not in government. So you go online today, check what a Land Cruiser costs. Individuals are buying Land Cruisers. It's $100,000. At the time, 6.5 million. With $2,000 shipping, $2,500 shipping, or $120,000, you could get it here. So for 7.1 million, you could get a Land Cruiser. So where does the extra 5 million come from? And these are not vehicles serving any purpose for the general public. And you know what has happened recently?
What has happened?
There's been a World Bank project. a World Bank project that procured those same vehicles, and they procured it for 3 million.
Seriously?
You know how I know that?
How did you know that?
So there was an issue. There was an issue at the State House recently. The project at the World Bank bought these vehicles. When these vehicles came, the ministers didn't like that there was another other staff or civil servants driving the same standard of vehicle.
Yeah, because they should always be.
They want to be a higher
above
class,
all
right?
of us.
They want to be a higher
above
class.
the rest of us.
I don't even get that. Today, my vehicle is 2.4 million. My CEO's vehicle is 4 million.
Well,
I've used my vehicle for seven years.
I drive a battered car of maybe just tens of thousands, not even hundreds of thousands.
As a mayor, I drove my vehicle for 7 years, which we bought for 2.4 million after I rejected a $5 million vehicle.
From who?
From Shebe Madi. They delivered a $5 million vehicle, Nissan Patrol, similar to the one the president was driving at the time. I rejected it. You know, I went home one day, Uncle Peter. I could not sleep.
Why?
Because I said, all these promises we have made to the public, all these things we said we are going to fix, and now we buy a 5 million vehicle for the mayor, for one person. The morning I came, I asked them to return it. Then Shebe Madi said, okay, then if you return it, what vehicle? I said, any vehicle below 3 million. They showed an option of a vehicle 2.4 million. It's like the MRC doctors, the one they drive is outside. You can go look at it when we are done. Then we bought that vehicle. I have driven that vehicle for 7 years.
Yeah,
when I was re-elected, they gave me an option to buy a new vehicle. I said, no, I don't need a new vehicle. Buy for the deputy mayor or the CEO. The CEO's vehicle was just bought and it just arrived, 4 million. I said, I will use my vehicle till my time is up. So why would you like to live in luxury as a public official?
We should ask the question to the National Assembly members who want a brand new vehicle every 5 years.
Yeah. So now when you look at the problem I'm talking to you about, when they now push these guys and said, you know, we don't want you guys to drive these vehicles. We want all these vehicles to report to the State House immediately. 20 vehicles were all sent to the State House. Can you imagine? Drivers drove these vehicles to the State House. They inspected it. Well, you know what happened? When they reviewed the invoices, they said to themselves, let's not make noise. Because when people realize the difference between the prices, it might be bad. Let's just allow them to go back with their vehicles. This is how I learned about this story. So the vehicles they are now using at 12 million could have been purchased at 3 million.
It's a shame.
So now they want to talk about KMC trucks that are serving the population. In our annual, every day, these trucks are collecting 500 tons of waste from our municipality, which would have otherwise been thrown into the riverine areas, unfinished houses, etc.
And it has to be said that, you know, despite that large, figure, they're still not getting everywhere.
It's impossible.
They are not getting to my place.
It's
you know, I've complained not once, not twice.
We came
and
to
Demba Sabali says too that he's still paying donkey carts to remove his waste, and he lives at Kololi, he says.
Yeah, but what Demba Sabali should focus on, I said, is the poor agricultural sector. And
He
the
says,
suffering in that agricultural
he says you
sector.
should deliver on your waste management promises.
Well, he should work on his agricultural sector because farmers are struggling. We came in here and found waste collection at 4%. We have moved it to 70%. It's not perfect, but it is way better than anywhere in this country at any point in the history of modern Gambia.
Absolutely.
It's never happened before, unprecedented. So if he's paying donkey carts, I asked him to walk over to his nearest office of the councillor and ask him to help him with the services. We have opened 19 ward offices for that point only, so that residents can go to their councillors when they have complaints. We have introduced a toll-free number, 1244, where you can call and complain if you feel that waste management is not happening. But do we have a toll-free number for disgruntled farmers to call?
I'm not sure. It's 3 minutes past, and I don't know how much time you have, and we are still, you know, on KMC. We haven't even started talking about. Okay, all right, Talib. So we will extend the conversation. We're talking to Talib Ahmed Bensouda. If you're just tuning in, especially on YouTube, he's here today. He should have been wearing red to, you know, join me in celebrating
Liverpool.
I'll soon throw you out of the studio.
As far as you're not an Arsenal fan.
Actually, my brother is.
Oh, really?
So yeah, there's always but yeah, he sympathizes with Liverpool.
Okay, all right.
Axel jam si Wave.
Yow Ablaye, yow lu tax doo dee dégg lu tax mënuloo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis hello xana lay waxal
Bësal mu fay.
What?
Bësal mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. Ak Wave. Bësal mu fine. Wave. Your money is yours.
Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor